Happened a couple years ago when I was in my early teens. It all started when I went to the movies with my friend Sam to go see the world premiere of The Dark Knight. The movie garnered a lot of notoriety at the time, obviously due to Heath Ledger's leading role as the Joker. I personally thought it was the greatest movie I had ever seen, considering I've seen almost every Batman movie that ever existed. I decided to buy some Dark Knight merchandise at the vendor booth located in the theater. What appealed most was how cheap the Batman masks were selling for. I didn't have a Halloween costume picked out for October yet, and neither did my friend Sam. We both collectively purchased one mask each and figured it would make for an easy costume to trick-or-treat with. I can honestly say it was an astronomical improvement from the cliche bedsheet over the head ghost I was last year. Fast forward to October 31st. Me and Sam both wore our Batman masks and began going door to door, looking for an opportunity to fill our candy sacks faster than any other trick-or-treater on the block. Trick-or-treat! Well, happy Halloween, Batman. That's it? Lame.
Get the hell off my property, you ungrateful twerps!
The majority of the houses were pretty generous, with the exception of a few bad apples to say the least. On this particular night, there wasn't many houses that had their lights on, which generally meant that they didn't really celebrate Halloween, or in other words, they weren't giving out candy. Me and Sam were understandably upset considering we'd been walking for at least an hour. I continued trick-or-treating while Sam began to head home through the pit located in the middle of the neighborhood.
Why didn't I just stay home and watch SpongeBob?
The pit was just a fancy nickname for the forest reserve, which was generally used for nature walks during the day. But me and Sam went there solely for the sake of a shortcut home. I began walking about half a block down when I see more houses without their lights on. Screw this, I'm going home. I eventually approached the pit while beating myself over the head for not leaving at the same time as Sam. As I entered the pit, I instantly had second thoughts of taking the longer route, as this route seemed nothing short of irresponsible and dangerous. I ultimately decided to man up and continue walking through the pit, as I didn't want to prolong my already dreadful night. Why the hell did I have to take this route? I can barely see anything. I knew I should have dressed up as a skateboarder. I would have been home already. I remember the pit being so dark to the point where I could virtually see nothing except for whatever my cell phone light was illuminating. What the hell was that? I began walking faster as I could hear faint sounds of what sounded like a maniac clown laughing.
What the hell? Who's there?
What is that? I began walking faster as I could hear faint sounds of what sounded like a maniac clown laughing.
What the hell? Who's there? Who's there?
At this point, I was so petrified I instinctively dropped my candy due to the adrenaline rush flowing through my body. I couldn't care less about the candy, as I genuinely felt like my life was in danger.
Ah!
That's when I saw the source of the laughter standing a few feet in front of me. It was a man dressed as the Joker from the Batman movie I saw previously. He honestly looked like an exact replica of Heath Ledger's with a hint of blood on his costume. What made this more disturbing was how casual his demeanor was. He just stood there smiling at me like my appearance was amusing to him. I didn't want to express the fear I felt internally, so I tried to playfully marvel at his costume and say, "Hey there, I really like your Joker costume." No matter how hard I tried to keep a composed poker face, my body language and mannerisms couldn't help but show the fear that bled inside of me. He then took a couple steps closer to me as I began to cautiously take a few steps backwards.
Hey man, what the hell do you want from me?
Why so serious? Happy Halloween. The man surprisingly walks past me while I watch him in complete shock. What the hell was that? Was that some real-life Joker? At this point, I continued walking home while looking back every 2 seconds to make sure the man wasn't lurking behind me. I eventually make it home and watch a couple of YouTube videos, trying to forget the creepy encounter that just took place. That's when my dad pops into my room and asks me to answer the house phone. Hey, Mark, answer the house phone. Hello?
Hey, Mark. Is Sam still with you?
That's when I felt my heart drop to my stomach. No, he left to go home way before I did.
Oh my god, why would you leave without him? He's not even home!
Sam's parents end up calling the police, which resulted in an entire block search party. What came of such an innocent Halloween night turned into a nightmare. Sam's remains were eventually found in the pit, with his face lacerated into an exaggerated smile, and his head decapitated from his body. I haven't trick-or-treated since, and I still live with the regret of not leaving at the same time as my friend. I informed law enforcement about the bizarre encounter with the man I saw that night. Call it speculation or whatever you want, but I know the death of my friend Sam had something to do with that sick man. Or should I say, the Joker.
My god! Why would you take my son from me? Why, God? God, why? Why would you take my son from me?
Police are looking for any witnesses to come forward in the connection of a deadly homicide of a teen. The victim's remains were found at the local park observatory. The suspect is described to be approximately 6 feet tall, Caucasian, and was last seen wearing purple attire with a green vest and tie. Police say the suspect is described to have face paint imitating the Joker from the blockbuster hit The Dark Knight. If anyone has any tips, please contact your local law enforcement and you shall remain anonymous. Alright, Karen, back to you.
Trick or treat! Well, happy Halloween, Batman. Batman. That's it? Lame.
Get the hell off my property, you ungrateful twerps!
Story time about how my date turned out to be a serial killer. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I recently got promoted at my job and had to move to a new city. I didn't know anyone in this new city, so I decided to sign up for some dating apps. Within a few days, I was already talking to some guys. One of them in particular was really nice, and I could tell he was really trying to get to know me. So I gave him my phone number. From there, we texted for about a full week. He would say good morning and good night. He would always ask me questions and act like he was just really interested in me. I decided that I really liked him, and I told him. That's when he asked me if I wanted to go on a date, and of course, I said yes. We decided to meet up for dinner during the weekend. On the morning of the date, I sent him a text message saying good morning. I didn't hear anything back from him. At first, I thought maybe he's just stuck at work. An hour before the date, I still hadn't heard from him, so I decided to send him a text, and he did not reply. So of course, I ended up going to dinner by myself anyway. But when I got home, I had a message from him apologizing for standing me up. When I asked him what happened, he told me that he got stuck at work. And I decided to believe him. I had no reason not to trust him. I decided to give him a second chance when he asked me out again. The following weekend, we decided to have a picnic. But same thing, a few hours before the date, I still hadn't heard from him. That's when I sent him a message asking him if he was going to show up or not. And I didn't hear anything from him for a few hours. Finally, he messaged me once again saying that he got stuck at work. He begged me for another chance, and I said yes. A few days later on the news, I saw that 2 women had disappeared after going on a date with some guy. And both of the women had disappeared in the area that I lived in. When I told my parents about it, they urged me not to go on any dates. So I decided not to tell them that I actually had a date that week. The following day, we meet at the restaurant. As soon as I see him, he's really sweaty and nervous. And when he hugged me, he smelled really bad. As in B.O. I didn't want to judge him, but I asked him if he was okay. That's when he told me that he'd been working every single day nonstop. Then I look at his fingernails and they're full of dirt and what seemed like some red stuff. I asked him what he did for work again, and you'll never guess what he said. He said he was in murders and acquisitions. Then he laughed. This is where it gets scary. Part 2 is up.
This is why you should always lock your doors. 2 teenage girls were working the night shift at a Pizza Hut when they realized it was 11 o'clock, meaning that it was time to close up shop. They turned off the lights, locked the doors, and began to walk outside. But as they approached their car, they realized that there was an old lady sitting in the front passenger seat. One of the girls opened the driver's side door and asked the old woman, "Can I help you?" before getting in. To which she replied, "I just need a ride home." The girls then told her that they needed to go back inside to call their moms and tell them that they'd be late. They immediately ran back inside, locked the doors, and proceeded to call the police, who showed up about 10 minutes later and arrested her. As it turns out, it was actually a 47-year-old man dressed up like an old woman, and the police found drugs and a knife on his body.